So switching gears a bit, our next speaker is Kate Kelly. Kate is the Director of Library Services at Southern Cross University and has designed library spaces and services in both Australia and overseas. In the Emirates, she designed a library that looked like a space-age shopping center, complete with Starbucks coffee shop. And she's just completed the very green, light, and sticky Learning Center at Southern Cross University in Lismore. Both were spaces designed outside in with a central theme of community. Her favorite project is usually the one she's just finished, and her least favorite is the one she's in the process of completing. She's currently co-designing a 6-story building on the Gold Coast campus, which will house a 2-story library, as well as refurbishing spaces as varied as executive meeting spaces and outdoor spaces in between on all 3 campus locations. So please join me in welcoming Kate.
I just said before, I think I'm the spaces in between the makers. And I would like to talk to you today about a space that I really love. But before I do that, I would like Sam just to show you a video to set the scene and put this presentation in context. Thanks, Sam. Welcome to the new Learning Centre in the heart of Southern Cross University's Lismore campus. This building departs from the traditional academic library in that it represents more about the people who will use the space rather than just a collection of books. The first floor is about connection. The 3 entries connect all parts of the campus to the Learning Centre. It is about students and staff connecting in conversation with each other in an informal, friendly space. The second floor is all about collaboration, with lots of areas to work and learn as part of a team. There is also the Read, Listen and Relax area, the university's living room, where students can relax and recharge. The third floor is a more traditional library space, designed for quiet contemplation, research and individual study. The building construction and design reflects SCU's strong connection with our environment, with a very organic feel inside and great use of natural light. We welcome our local community to visit the Learning Centre, which is open to the public. This building is an asset to the university as well as the community as a whole. So, that's us. So, I'm not sure if any of you have visited Lismore, Northern Rivers of New South Wales, and know our Southern Cross Lismore campus. But what we are is a regional and multi-site campus. We have about 15,000 students, 1,000 staff. We're growing rapidly. But that's what we are, not really who we are. And who we are generally first in family, a lot of first in family to attend tertiary education. We have quite a low SES, we have a high Indigenous participation, we have a high mature age. So when we were designing the building, we looked at our cultural values. And I think the best way to describe that is I'm going to read from a very esteemed academic journal called the QULOC Newsletter. I'm sure you've all seen it and read it. And I'm just going to read you an excerpt from an article that was written by one of our librarians, actually, Maureen. So this is what she thought about when about the campus. After living in big cities all my life, I chose to move to a regional area to raise my family. The Northern Rivers area of New South Wales won us over because of the diversity of communities. and because there is a local university. When I started working at Southern Cross University, I expected to find certain benefits of working in a regional university: a pleasant commute, gorgeous scenery, and a relaxed atmosphere. What I found is so much more. The natural beauty I'm greeted with as part of my commute doesn't stop there. Being so embedded in the natural environment means that the university has a focus on sustainability. Respect for the environment is found everywhere, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because we are part of the environment. We are embedded as part of the environment, but also part of the community. Our connections with Aboriginal elders, local business, community groups and schools help to develop a feeling of community and ensure that we offer our students what is true to our regional culture. So I guess these words are something that have been embedded in the design. We recently had a Focus 20 looking at what the university aspires to be in 2020, and these words kept coming up around community, sustainability, diversity, personal service. So when we were looking at the design, these are the words we were thinking about. The other thing that happened in the design, and I won't run around and point, but this is a brand new build. It wasn't just a refurb. So we moved from the outer reaches, building A, if you can see that, right into the heart of the campus. So what it really was this is how our students used to think of us. It was a long way to come to the library, up a huge hill. No one wanted to come to us because we were so far away. Where we are now is deep in the heart of the campus. We're near all the other support services, but more importantly, we're near the food, we're near the bands, we're near where everything happens. So again, this informed the design. So the design principles, and I'll read some of these so I don't forget. The first thing is we wanted an inspirational space. When you think of Lismore, the next most inspirational building was probably Bond Uni or Griffith Uni on the Gold Coast, and that's some 2 hours away. So when I talk about our community, I'm not just talking about the university community, I'm talking about the region. I'm talking about the farmers, the business people, the schools, the Indigenous people who rely on us and look to the university as a significant part of their community. I should have said before I go on, when I looked at those words before, I think as I'm talking, I'd like you to think about your university and what words would you use to describe that university as it sits in its community. Maybe they're the same, maybe they're different. And if we've got time at the end, I'd like to hear what words describe you in your space, and does your buildings reflect who you are? So yes, we wanted an inspirational space, and I have to say, as we were building, as we were in the design phase and money was getting tighter and tighter, I said, really, should we just fill in all this air? It's an atrium, let's just build it in. Luckily, I wasn't listened to, because I think a building of this, in this space needs to have a wow factor. It needs to have a sense of gravitas, and having that atrium and that great sense of wow as you walk in the building is really important to us. It had to be, obviously, as I said before, those environmental conditions, we just don't say them, we live them. It's a 5-star Green Star building, from the air conditioning to the water harvesting to the use of solar panels to reflect glare to the lots of features which I'll talk about. This is an embodiment of our values there. We wanted it to be a welcoming space, as I said, first in families. We wanted it to be very non-threatening and not really to have any blocks to people coming and using the space. We wanted it engaging, fun, sticky. We wanted it a really exciting space. But that's more about the services and how we use the space, but I'll talk about that as well. We wanted it to be the cultural heart of the campus. We also wanted an element of surprise, and of course it had to reflect the university's mission. So we built the building in 3 stages. The first floor, as I said before, is about connection and conversation. It doesn't actually have any books. It has all the help services there. It has the cafe. It has lots of spaces just to meet and greet. It has 3 entrances and exits. I'll just move that down a bit. You don't, from the desk, actually see all the exits and entrances. Something we had to get used to as keepers of books. When I say it is a connected space, but it's connected as a cultural space as well. So we have a north to south walk through. It's called our gallery walk. And every time I go into the space, I see something new and exciting. So this is what I want our students to feel too, something different's happening in the space all the time. This was something to do with art versus science, I think, and these crystals in these jars grew and changed every day. I don't really care what's in the space. I want it to be a student-owned space. I sometimes look at the art and think, wow. But again, it has to be the student space. So if this is art, that's art. It's a community space, and I love this photo, and I love the story that goes behind it, so I'll just tell it to you, because when we were building the building, I used to say to the architects, look, we're not building the AMP in Melbourne, folks. We're building something in Lismore. What reflects Lismore? So this, we've got a cafe, as I said, the Water Dragon Cafe, because there's heaps of water dragons around. And we were dressing this particular room beside the Water Dragon Cafe, and we wanted something really local. And cafes in Lismore, when you think of the cafe in Lismore, you think of the Mecca Cafe. It's been there for 100 years, maybe not 100 years. It's been under flood. It's just an iconic space. So we got in contact with the original owner. He came one afternoon at 5 o'clock with this tattered, much-loved family photo. He handed it over with so much pride. And by 9 o'clock the next morning, we had it dressed across the window. We had our designers, fix it up and put it on in one of our windows. So these are the stories that we'll take with us into the future. Actually, this isn't the photo, but this is a different photo. This is around Protest at the Falls. Lismore is a region known for passive protest, and in each of the rooms, it's about, if I can quote Mal Booth, it's about discovery, curiosity. So we want the students to look at the photographs, go inside, there's a little plaque about what they are, and more information about where they are and what they're about. There's things about, the Aquarius Festival, all sorts of things that make us who we are in Lismore. You can also see, I should say, I suppose, that we have those iPads on the door. We know our community often travel long distances to come to uni, and they want to book their rooms before they get there. They often want to book a librarian as well, so they use LibCal. I'm sure you all know that product. So they can book a librarian, they can book a space, they're using these rooms that way. Or you can just use your phone QR code on the day. As I said, this is the floor with the welcome, with all the help zones. And if you come to the library, you'll see there's not a lot of signage anywhere, because I don't think people really read the signs. But we wanted, as I said, a welcoming space for our first-in families to attend, and those who are feeling a little bit unsure of the space. I tell this story. I had to visit the Gold Coast University Hospital. It was, quite dramatic circumstances. A loved one was very ill. And I walked into that space, and it was a great big space. I didn't know the process, the procedures, where to go, what to do. And I looked across this sort of grand atrium, and I saw this sign. It just said welcome. And there were some lovely people standing there. So I kind of took a breath, and I thought, yeah, maybe this is how some of our students feel when they're coming into our spaces. So our libraries desks don't have, information, loans, circulation, or whatever words we tend to use. It just says welcome. It's just there. People know that there's people there to help. The desks are very small. I don't believe they're perfect. They're not exactly what I wanted, but they're very small. They're, you can work either side of them. We do have that side-by-side model. We have concierges. We have rovers who come and sort of proactively greet people as they walk through the door. There's nothing behind the desks. There's not equipment or books or anything. It's just a lovely space. Everything's in the cupboard. We hide it in the cupboard. A lot of self-service. We've taken a lot of activities away from those desks because we really want them to be help zones. So self-service through the building. And again, we don't use signage. We put our printers, our self-serve spots in exactly the same spot through the building. So it's kind of fairly intuitive where this stuff is going to be. as we move, I should move up to the second floor. On the second floor is all about collaboration. This is something that's one of our graduate attributes. We want to have team builders. We want to have people who can work together. So this floor has lots of different spaces in it. I love these girls because one of these girls said to me, "Oh, never went to that old library. It was so far away. Oh my goodness." But she said, "I meet my friends here to watch our lectures. We don't go to the lectures. We watch them here together." So this is sort of, and especially as we move to a flipped classroom model, which our university is doing, most of the activity will happen outside the actual lecture room, and this is what we're providing in these spaces. As I said, the second floor, when we talk about collaboration, people collaborate all different sorts of ways. There's lots of booths. We know the students love the booths. They like the high back lounges. They like every nook and cranny that we can provide. I again love this photo because this is collaboration in isolation, I suppose. But again, you know, part of the brief was anywhere you can sit down, you have power and USB, ubiquitous wireless throughout the building and outside. We sort of, you know, put in a lot of high back lounges because we thought, oh, it's going to be so noisy. Oh dear. The students actually are far quieter than the rest of us, I think, in these spaces. They tend to self-moderate. So also around the edges of the building, because it is a beautiful building, lots of glass, there's lots of different sorts of spaces where you can, you know, sit, learn, relax, do whatever. And of course, beanbags, the students love the beanbags, they're everywhere. All of the furniture you can push and pull, most of it's on wheels, so we let the students decide where it's going to be. As you saw in the video, read, listen, relax is really important to us. We need a university living room. We have students who don't have places at home that they can sit and just chill out and charge up. So that's what this place is about. In many of these spaces, you can still see the plaza. You can still see what your friends are doing. All of the shelving is quite low, so you can see across. The sight lines are very important, so you can see everything wherever you are. You don't have those canyons of books. But we do have a quiet, a contemplation space, which is our third level. Again, we haven't used signage. We've used colour. The colour palette has gone from quite bright greens to more muted tones on this floor. And we've used things like we've put lids on the carrels, and we've put lights and things to just lower the mood. We don't have signs that say no talking or, you know, be quiet, whatever. And the carrels are in amongst the books. So those students who do like that contemplative, quiet spot, they're in amongst the books. It modifies the behaviour by doing that. No computers on this floor. It was probably a bit of a mistake, but we didn't want to have any fixed computers on this floor. Something we might have to think about. On this floor, there's a 3-metre balcony that wraps around the building, so you can sit inside and out. Again, power out on this beautiful building. You can sit and watch the bands in the plaza, or you can go around the other side of the building and watch the creek and the waterfall. I do talk about signs. We do have some signs, but all of them are template driven. And this space is actually a university space. It's not a library. So we do advertise a lot of university type events. We advertise when census date comes. We advertise any sort of events that's happening on campus or in our community. But everything is in these nice sort of signs so that it has a similar look and feel throughout the building. One of the things we love, and this is our AV wall, but we've called the staff of christened this Seymour. Seymour is 16 screens, 55-inch. We wanted it as simple as possible because we wanted to change it up as often as we could. And so Seymour has a default artistic piece on it, which is our heads, hearts and lands. So it reflects who we are as a community and a region. It reflects what we teach. And our hearts, of course, are our students. So it reflects our students on this digital art piece. But Seymour is used for far more than that. Whatever's happening in the gallery space is usually reflected up on the wall, whether it's, you know, open access or whatever. But we are using the wall to digitise or visualise our data. We want, again, this to be a student and staff-owned window to the university. It's not a marketing piece. So just Research Week, we've been visualising all sorts of things, stomach linings of rats and mollusks and all sorts of things up on this wall. We have a fantastic guy who's an artistic biologist or a biological artist, I think that's it. and he's doing a lot of work on the wall. But we hope that the students will put up their own stuff as well. Yeah. Sometimes in a design, things can go a little bit awry. And during the build, I'd been over at our health clinic, and they thought they'd had a burglary, actually, and they were really concerned, that people had broken into the clinic. But it was actually the resident possums who had got into the clinic and had caused some havoc. So I'd gone for a site visit, and I came upon the builders standing around scratching their heads and looking at great big holes in the walls, just in this cement, just where the bottom of the stairs. And they said, "Oh, we'll just have to leave it." And I said, "Oh, no, you can't do that. You'll have to think of something. Why don't you just put in some possum doors?" Not for 1 minute thinking that they would be putting in possum doors. So, yes, apparently the builders raced out to Bunnings that afternoon and got some brass fittings. And the next day I went for a site visit and I said, "What's that?" And they said, "Well, they're your possum doors." And I thought, okay, how am I going to explain this to the Vice-Chancellor when he comes walking through? But I didn't really have to, because the possum doors have become a huge hit. The possum doors often have possums in them, but and some of our littler students often like to have a look at the possum doors. But I often have a look to see what's in there, and I noticed the other day that two of our little, obviously children of our students, had been writing notes to each other and leaving them in the possum doors for them to find. It just gives us a sense of whimsy, a sense of fun in our spaces. Obviously, when the council walked through, I talked to them about how libraries around the world have these hidden secret passages. But to other people, I say, "Oh, there's our possum doors." Other sort of things that we've done with a sense of fun is, I'm not sure if you can see the carpet there. It goes from a green into a alarmingly light colour, but the green is supposed to be the outside environment coming into the space. So it's about the green blobs coming into the space. This is not probably a very good picture, but we've used lighting again to affect mood, but also to provide us with a sense of whimsy in the space. So some of the lights are quite artistic and cool, and again, the brighter the lights, the louder the people can be. I'm probably close to time, but I do like to acknowledge the staff in all of this, because as we move into a new space, we've had to really look at ourselves and see what sort of services we offer and how we work. The staff have moved into open plan for a start, from the manager down. And they're on the third floor, the help services are on the ground floor, the librarians are now, booked via LibCal, And the space is very different. It's not a traditional library. There's stuff going on in there all the time. And things like the AV wall, how do we manage digital content when somebody from the community wants to do an art display? We have to make sure we've got policies, procedures around intellectual property of all this stuff. So I do like to acknowledge the staff, because they've gone into the space with great charm and grace and have worked really well. 3 months after they moved in, of course, we moved over to Alma, so I didn't give them much rest between moving into a new space and getting a new library system. So how do we know if any of this has worked for us? The university has its own, we have our own mechanisms, of course, but we are part of the university. So Pulse is the university's way that it gets feedback from its students. It's, I'm happy, I'm sad, I want to know. In the 3 months after we opened the Learning Centre, the Learning Centre was 10% of the traffic, which is a fair amount, because this thing gets a lot of traffic. Most of the comments were overwhelmingly positive. People were, there was a lot of wow factor and excitement generated. The students loved the space. They just basically walked in and sat down and started working. But of course, we do have people who like that traditional space. We had people who wanted the old carols back. They didn't like that they were sitting without, somewhere beside them. People didn't like that they were a cafe in the space. Some people, and it is true, the floor is quite noisy. We have a raised floor so that if ever we want to put in another PowerPoint, we just lift the tile on the floor and stick it in. But it is sort of like walking on a wooden floor. And when we were taking tours, it was like little herds of baby elephants walking along. But as I say, we try to cater for those things. What we might have done differently, surprisingly, in our Gold Coast campus, nobody cares that they have to sit next to each other without a barrier. But in Lismore, they weren't used to, some students weren't used to this. So, and we do have the PCs quite close together. So whether we, look at that, perhaps. Again, we have, next time we build, maybe we won't put in a cafe, but we'll put in a kitchen. This is our new engineering building. We've just put in kitchens rather than cafes. How would a makerspace look in our learning centre? This is what we're looking at now. And because of the mix of the things we teach, it'll probably be a very creative space, using technology, but perhaps in the creative arts, music. We're putting in entrepreneurial hubs with our local community, and how the library interacts with that is something we'll be working with. Another thing we have to really determine is, what are we as a library? Are we a function centre, or are we the library? A very wise University of Adelaide University librarian Ray once said to me, "Kate, once you've got valuable real estate, everyone will want a piece of it." And that is actually true. The university loves this space, and anything that they want to host is in our library. It's great. It's something we need to manage. It's either on the balcony or the terraces, or actually in the spaces. So it's something where we look to see who are we, what is a library, how do we see ourselves. What next for us is a new learning centre on the Gold Coast, and you can see the Gold Coast is pretty different from Lismore. So how this design will be reflected in the library, or how the cultural values will change in this space, is kind of something we're working with now. The library will sit next to a cafe and a 500-seat lecture theatre, and in a teaching space. So again, this might reflect how we design it. So we're in that process now. I love this photo. I thought I'd put it on the end. This is where we sit, in amongst the trees. It's a beautiful space. I love it, and I love being there. And I think the staff do too. And the students, of course.